always something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent.
Come on, man.
We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
And welcome to it from Alternative Studio number 1. Glad to have you on board, kicking off another brand new broadcast day here, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom. Sometimes you just got to find a new foxhole. Makes me ask, who should you have in your foxhole? Good question, isn't it? Got a lot of work to do here today, so let's get to it. 3 big things this hour. Number 1, seems there is a feud that has started between President Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia, which is surprising to many, but she says she's hoping for reconciliation. We'll talk about it. Number 2, U.S. Marines in Haiti opening fire on gang members that were rushing the gate. Americans are being targeted more than ever. I'll have the latest on that. And number 3, kicking off on Monday. A House vote tomorrow could release the full Jeffrey Epstein files, as Trump says he's asking the DOJ to launch an investigation into Democrats' ties to the deceased and disgraced sex trafficker. Democrats released 3 hand-selected, cherry-picked emails from Jeffrey Epstein last week as an attempted gotcha moment against Donald Trump, but it seems to have backfired quite spectacularly, in my opinion, because here's what we've learned from those emails. New York Times disgraced writer Michael Wolff was coaching Jeffrey Epstein on how to gain leverage over then presidential candidate Donald Trump. Wolff later went on to rake in book sales for smearing President Trump in a 2018 book that reads more like a hit job and was almost entirely discredited. We also learned from other newly released documents that Jeffrey Epstein was communicating with Democrat Representative Stacey Plaskett during a 2019 congressional hearing. That's right, directly with her, while she was questioning Michael Cohen, one of Trump's former attorneys, affecting the kind of questions she asked of Cohen. Why was he wielding so much influence over a Democrat member of Congress on the House Oversight Committee that handled the Epstein files in the first place? Why was he feeding her questions? The email that the Democrats wanted you to focus on, though, is this one. Jeffrey Epstein writes, I want you to realize that the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. And then there's a redacted victim, right? Spent hours at my house with him. Sounds incriminating, right? But I'm going to argue quite that it's not. In fact, it's not much of anything. First off, that redacted victim name, as you likely already know, is Virginia Giuffre, who wrote a book on her experiences with Jeffrey Epstein's crimes and has never accused Donald Trump of wrongdoing. In fact, she actually supported his run for president. And in her book said Trump did nothing wrong in all her interactions with him. Democrats redacted her name because they knew that it would blow apart their story, which, of course, it did. So what does Epstein mean when he said Trump is the dog that hasn't barked? Here's what Epstein expert, a book author, Barry Levine, thinks. Listen.
Well, I think Jeffrey Epstein is referring to the fact that he believes that Donald Trump talked to Michael Ryder, who was the Palm Beach police chief in 2004, and began the first investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. I suspect that Jeffrey Epstein, in his conversation or email with Maxwell, was saying he was 75% there, believing that Trump might have been the whistleblower at the time. Again, you have to remember that particular year, the two men had a falling out, not only over the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was taking young women from his spa at Mar-a-Lago for Jeffrey Epstein, but they also had a nasty real estate deal that both men were trying to get. So there was bad blood between the two of them.
Bad blood. The two men were not in cahoots. In fact, they were at odds with each other, which is not new information, but the Democrats are just hoping for you to forget that. In case you need a refresher, Trump severed ties with Jeffrey Epstein in 2007 after reportedly learning that he was recruiting young women and girls at Mar-a-Lago. One of those, Virginia Giuffre herself. Trump banned Epstein from the property and cooperated with lawyers who represented Epstein's victims. The lawyers have said that he was one of the only ones to cooperate. Everyone else stonewalled them. In fact, here's an attorney for one of the victims, Bradley Edwards. Listen to this.
The only thing that I can say about President Trump is that he is the only person who, in 2009, when I served a lot of subpoenas on a lot of people, or at least gave notice to some pretty connected people that I wanted to talk to them, he is the only person who picked up the phone and said, let's just talk. I'll give you as much time as you want. I'll tell you what you need to know, and was very helpful in the information that he gave, and gave no indication whatsoever that he was involved in anything untoward whatsoever, but had good information that checked out and that helped us, and that we didn't have to take a deposition of him.
That was in 2009?
That was in 2009.
So there it is. Donald Trump lays out the case for them in 2009. Helps out those going after Jeffrey Epstein. It's pretty clear. It was the Trump administration, by the way, that Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were actually arrested. If anything, everything points to the conclusion that Donald Trump was an informant helping the prosecution and key to taking down Epstein's vile sex trafficking ring. This hasn't stopped the media and Democrats from trying to prove the opposite, though. Remember when NBC wanted Epstein victims to go out and go after Donald Trump? But instead, here's what they got. Listen.
I do have to ask, and I know, and it's just something that I think we're compelled to at this moment, with the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon. Did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
No. A whole room of victims. No is the answer. But instead of this clip being blasted everywhere, we're just getting more of these slanderous allegations. Listen to this vile comment from Senator Chris Murphy of Connecticut.
And it is clearly the biggest scandal in presidential history. And he wouldn't be acting this way if he wasn't so deeply worried about what sits in those files. What we've already seen is immensely incriminating. Clearly, Donald Trump was at the center of a child sex ring. That is heartbreaking that the president of the United States was involved in that kind of gross, craven immorality.
Oh, there's craven immorality, all right. It's not coming from Donald Trump on this situation. It's coming from Murphy and other smear merchants. Yeah, he was the center of a child sex ring, please. Did he replace Jeffrey Epstein there? No, of course not. I hope Donald Trump sues the pants off from Murphy and everyone else who tries to smear his name like this. You can see that CNN's afraid of that exact outcome because they keep having to make these kinds of disclaimers on their show. Listen.
That mentioned the president, and we do want to be clear, the president, Trump, did not receive or send any of the messages, which largely predated his time as president. He's not been accused of any criminal wrongdoing in connection with Epstein or Maxwell. The White House...
So he's not, let me be clear, not at the center of a child sex ring, Senator Murphy. What a grotesque thing to say. I mean, that's what desperation sounds like. Okay, so tomorrow they're going to vote. Be careful what you wish for, Democrats. Be careful what you wish for, CNN, MSNBC, New York Times, all of you. We'll find out. We'll get to it. And we will hold people accountable. But his smears aren't alone. We'll have more of the crazy Democrats after the break. Welcome to a Monday on the Steve Gruber Show. Glad to have you here. Remarkable when you think that Senator Chris Murphy and his sleazy accusations aren't even the worst of it. Democrat Melanie Stansberg made this atrocious claim on CNN with a straight face, no evidence at all, of course, just a complete smear job. Listen.
Whether or not Virginia Giuffre has accused the president of wrongdoing, what I'd like to say to the American people is believe your eyes. We have all seen the photographs of Donald Trump with underage girls sitting on his lap. We know that he was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein for more than a decade. We know that he has not complied with our congressional subpoena of the DOJ files, and we know that he is named multiple times in those files. So believe your eyes, believe your ears.
Excuse me? No, I have not seen photographs of Donald Trump with underage girls sitting on his lap. Have you? Joe Biden, yes. Donald Trump, no. That CNN host just sat there. Should have pushed back right then and there and asked for those photographs that don't exist. Because Stansberg better not have been referring to one of the only pictures of Trump and his daughter or his children. Give me a break. I've not seen any other photographs because they don't exist. But what the American public did see was Joe Biden fondle and sniff young girls on camera all the way through Washington, D.C. It went on for decades. Yeah, that's what I saw. I want to know why Democrats are so set on releasing these files now after sitting on them for 4 years during Biden's tenure. Why? What I've seen so far is nothing on Trump and everything that implicates the Democrats. Scott Jennings over at CNN making sure the liberal panel there understands that too. Always a master, here he is.
His connection to Epstein, as shown in those emails, according to Epstein, is unsavory, and it's not good.
Is that new information that he knew Jeffrey Epstein? Is it new information that Trump excommunicated him from Mar-a-Lago? Is it the only new information that we got this week off those emails was that somebody from the New York Times was advising Jeffrey Epstein, and we learned tonight from the Washington Post that Jeffrey Epstein was programming Democratic members of Congress. We didn't learn anything we didn't already know about Donald Trump, which was Jeffrey Epstein hated Donald Trump, and now Democrats are aligning themselves with Jeffrey Epstein because Orange Man bad.
Did you read those 3 emails? They are really bad looking. They are optics
They
are
are
terrible.
not.
Oh my God! Okay, they're putting
show?
Trump with one of the victims.
There's nothing there. Nothing. Just a bunch of outlandish accusations, just like Russia, Russia, Russia. Sound familiar? I don't think Democrats care about bringing justice for Epstein's victims. They don't. They just want to bury Republicans and Donald Trump before the midterms. Whether the accusations are true or not, they don't care. Another case in point. Congressman Tim Burchett of Tennessee says the same after he tried to get the files out on the House floor and Democrats blocked the bill. Listen.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett just left the House floor, and I tried to do a UC, unanimous consent of tried to get the Epstein files, get it straight to the floor, just to cut out all this nonsense, and and the Democrats blocked it, oddly enough. Now here they've had it for 4 years, and they obviously if there's something there about Trump, they would have released it, and now they're all, let's get it out, let's get it out. Well, I just made a motion to bring it straight to the dadgum floor, and they blocked it. So this is politics. It has nothing to do with what's doing what's right, and it's Washington, D.C. to a T. And again, they ought to be ashamed of themselves, but they're probably not. Thank y'all for sending me here.
I'm pretty sure they're not ashamed, though he's right, they should be. For months, Democrats have loudly demanded that the Epstein records be made public, but when they finally have the chance to support full disclosure, they say no. It's clear they were never interested in genuine transparency. They're looking for a political cudgel to swing at Trump, despite knowing the files contain nothing damaging about him. What they did want to release were 3 selectively chosen emails that were then manipulated. They thought could be spun to hurt Trump. Those messages were stripped of context, misrepresented, and then amplified by sympathetic media outlets. Only deepened the coverage, if mentioned at all, was the admission that the emails amounted to zero, nada. Once Democrats put out their hand-picked snippets, Republicans countered by making the entire trove of roughly 20,000 documents public. Democrats were furious, which says a lot about how committed they really were to letting the public see everything. And as soon as people read for themselves the emails, the so-called scandal collapsed immediately. There was no Trump connection, no incriminating content, just another fleeting narrative designed to generate headlines. And the Democrats, the headlines were the whole point. This was never about justice for Epstein's victims or holding powerful people accountable. It was all about scoring political points against Trump. And in my opinion, Democrats just showed everyone their hand, and it did not work. All right, let's talk about this for a moment. You know that stubborn acne that never quite goes away, the one that ice, heat, and pain pills barely touch. What if you could target it all at the cellular level instead of just numbing it? That's how you get rid of pain. That's TheraBlue. That's what it was designed to do. TheraBlue is a next-generation pain-relieving peptide gel that works deeper than the skin surface. Powered by aqua molecular delivery technology, that's AQA. It delivers peptides and botanicals directly into muscle tissue for legit lasting relief. I could use that today. I'm a little hurting from the gym. Its hero ingredient is copper peptide. It promotes collagen synthesis, reduces inflammation, and helps accelerate repair. NAD Plus restores cellular energy to aid recovery, while methylene blue protects your mitochondria and supports endurance. Natural extracts like MSM, turmeric, white willow bark, arnica, and ginger soothe inflammation, while menthol, camphor, and eucalyptus oil deliver instant cooling relief. It absorbs fast and leaves your skin refreshed, not greasy or oily. Apply a thin layer, massage until absorbed, and let your body experience lasting recovery. Get 10% off today by visiting TWC, that's the wellness company, twc.health/Gruber. Use that promo code Gruber, you're going to save some money. Move freely again with TheraBlue, twc.health/Gruber. You want to try it? I'm going to be using it today. You know, Sarge beat me up a little bit. Oh, maybe she didn't. Maybe I just hurt myself. Maybe I'm just getting older. twc.health/Gruber. We'll take a break and be back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. Welcome to a new week and a new Monday. Well, as you know, a bit of a feud has developed between President Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's back and forth on social media. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia, appearing on CNN over the weekend, weighed in and said she hopes that they can resolve their issues and stop the toxic conversations in politics. Here's what she said.
You posted on X that President Trump is, with his comments, fueling a, quote, hotbed of threats against you. Obviously, any threats to your safety are completely unacceptable. But we have seen these kinds of attacks or criticism from the president at other people. It's not new. And with respect, I haven't heard you speak out about it until it was directed at you.
Dana, I think that's fair criticism, and I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country, and it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Is that I'm only responsible for myself and my own words and actions, and I am committed, and I've been working on this a lot lately, to put down the knives in politics. I really just want to see people be kind to one another, and we need to figure out a new path forward that is focused on the American people, because as Americans, no matter what side of the aisle we're on, we have far more in common than we have differences. Yeah. And we need to be able to respect each other with our disagreements.
So there she has. Reconciliation seems to be on her mind and on her heart. I think that's a good idea and a good path forward. Look, Democrats are always on the same page, lockstep together. Republicans need to consider that as well. Affordability. That is the concern going forward, affordability. It's not about little disagreements or public feuds. Let's skip that. Let's move forward and do what's right for the American people before the midterms. Let's not be distracted from the task at hand, putting America first. I think that's where we need to be, and that's my take on that feud. Hopefully it resolves itself soon. I'll take a break and be right back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. Well, the Iranian government says they're closer now to having nuclear capabilities than before the attack by the United States Air Force on the nuclear facilities. I think that's highly unlikely, but it's the claim being made right now. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C. over the weekend, Iranians gathered that want freedom for their country, those living in exile. Sina Saeedian is a panelist at the Free Iran Convention. It happened Saturday. for this year. He's a JD candidate at the University of Virginia School of Law, where he's a Karsh Dillard Scholar and editor of the Virginia Law Review and symposium chair for the Federalist Society. He joins me now. Sina, good morning.
Steve, great to be with you.
All right, let's talk about this. There's a stronger push now for a free and democratic Iran than there's been in a number of years. Tell me about this event on Saturday in D.C. and how important these sorts of gatherings are.
Well, yeah, Steve, as you mentioned, the Iranian people, led by their organized opposition movement, the National Council of Resistance of Iran, have been pushing for a strong, sober American policy that recognizes that regime change is the end game. But this event that you mentioned on Saturday in Washington, D.C. was really an electric expose of a diverse array of people, many people from the Iranian diaspora. You had women, young scholars, young professionals coming together, outlining their vision for what Iran can be. And they were also joined by incredible dignitaries from the United States and even from England. You had folks like Secretary of State Mike Pompeo echoing why this is in America's interests and how America can help support a more free and prosperous Middle East through supporting regime change in Iran, a policy that, in his words, does not require boots on the ground from the United States, does not require American taxpayer money, but rather requires a strong policy of maximum pressure on the regime in Tehran, coupled with moral support and really moral clarity about what the alternative can bring. That same message was also echoed by others like Ambassador Carlos Sands, who is Ambassador to Denmark under the first Trump administration, as well as others like Congressman Patrick Kennedy and Speaker John Bercow of the UK House of Commons. So really, it was a demonstration of support and clarity that was much needed, both in terms of a message of hope and optimism, but also a message to lawmakers in Washington, D.C. that this is the direction that both the Iranian people and the American people can stand together and fight for a cause that's both good for Iranian interests, but also great for American interests in terms of national security.
Sure. Now, the NCRI, Sina, has been seen by some as, in effect, the Iranian government in exile, working since 1979 to try to return that country to free elections, for example, and freedom for the people there. And we've discussed this many times on the program. It seems that Iran is closer today because the regime seems weaker today, at least from the outside looking in from where I sit. The regime looks weaker today than it has in years. So what are the opportunities? Is there a chance, Sina, that we could finally see the Iranian people rise up and be free again?
I think there absolutely is. For one, for the last several decades, the Iranian regime has really focused on a two-pronged strategy of repression at home, coupled with terrorism abroad through their proxies like Hezbollah, Hamas, even their support for regimes like the Assad regime, and of course we know their nuclear ambitions that they've been working towards. And if you look at the landscape the last 2 years, this facade has completely collapsed, especially in the aftermath of the October 7th attack that they sponsored through their backing of Hamas. You look in the Middle East now, the Assad regime that the Iranian regime has been backing for the past decade is gone. Hezbollah is a skeleton of what it once was. Hamas, likewise, a skeleton of what it was once. And their nuclear ambitions also have been severely handicapped by the strikes by Israel and the United States over the summer that completely, I think, infiltrated the highest levels of their nuclear security, as well as their armed forces, their intelligence agencies, really crippling them from within. And you see that also reflected through instability in the government inside of Iran, but also the fact that the people are no longer afraid to rise up. You've seen successive uprisings that I think you alluded to from 2017, 2022, and even now you see small skirmishes happening inside of Iran, and it shows that the people are no longer afraid. They see the regime for the paper tiger that it really is, and they're willing to rise up. And I think an element that makes Iran distinctive from other countries where we've seen similar instability, similar calls for uprisings is what you mentioned at the very beginning, in that they have an organized opposition movement in the form of, like you said, a parliament in exile. The National Council of Resistance of Iran and its president-elect, Mariam Rajavi, have put forward a cohesive plan called the 10-point plan that has elements that really reflect the same values that we have in our own Declaration of Independence and Bill of Rights. Things like separation of powers, separation of church and state, support for a free market economy, dismantling of the nuclear program, and support for international institutions. And they have a way to actually facilitate this through this government in exile that I think gives hope that you're not going to have a power vacuum. You actually have a movement that's ready to facilitate progress and change.
So, what do you make of the claims by the regime currently that they are closer to having nuclear capabilities than they did before the strikes by the American Air Force? I find that awfully hard to believe, as do most people. But what is your take on it? What do you think is true?
Yeah, I would agree with you. This is a regime that is frankly all talk, no walk. They've been saying for years, we're closer than ever to a nuclear weapon. If you don't sign a deal with us, we're going to proliferate. We're going to start supporting our terrorist proxies to take attacks on you. And every step of the way, all it really takes is one small act of courage and decisiveness by the United States just to expose how weak they are. I think a great example of this is what happened a few years ago in Iraq when there was lots of saber rattling, a lot of talk of Iraqi militias attacking American embassies, attacking American forces. And all the Trump administration did was call their bluff, launched a strike, taking out their number one of their military, arguably the number two in their entire government, Qasem Soleimani. And the response to that was supposed to be a radical a retaliation. What we saw was Iran couldn't do anything. And I think this all gets back to the fact that they're a paper tiger. They've been talking up a big game about all their proxies, all their nuclear ambitions. But at the end of the day, this is a regime that survives on nothing but fear and repression. And once
Yeah.
that fear and repression gets called for what it is, I think that they have very little to show for it.
In fairness, this paper tiger, however, does execute its opponents whenever it has the opportunity. It will hang them in public. You know that. They've been doing it since 1979. What would you like to see from the Trump administration to push this forward to maybe see a free Iran in our lifetimes?
Yes, and I think on that point you mentioned about executions inside of Iran, I think that again goes to the fact that this is a regime that survives on fear and force alone. They have lost all legitimacy at the ballot box, and the only way to make up for that is executions and imprisonment. But in terms of what the United States can do, like I said at the beginning, I think Americans often have an apprehension to conversations about regime change, but I think it's important to recognize that, as Secretary of State Pompeo mentioned at the convention on Saturday, this does not require boots on the ground. It does not require taxpayer dollars going towards Iran. All it really requires is a policy of maximum pressure on the regime through things like sanctions, through things like diplomatic isolation, and through things like targeted strikes against their proxies, like what we saw against Qasem Soleimani a few years ago, coupled with a support for it and a recognition for the alternative that is led by Mariam Rajavi and the National Council of Resistance of Iran. I think this two-pronged policy can lead us to results that we've seen elsewhere, like the collapse of the Soviet Union, for example, which, again,
Sure.
Secretary of State Pompeo remarked about. No one knows exactly the day that these uprisings are coming, but a policy that's sober, that's forward-looking, and that maximizes pressure on this regime to advance American interests can also lead to isolation of the regime and moral support for the people and their organized opposition.
Well, Steve, I really appreciate you taking time to be here and give us an update on what's happening with the NCRI and the people pushing for freedom in Iran. Thank you for stopping by today.
Likewise. Thank you, Steve.
Greatly appreciate it. There you have it. We try to keep you up to date on Iran. We would like to see Iran be free again. Wouldn't that be something? First time since 1979. And they keep pushing, fighting, holding the line. And we'll continue to cover that story here on the Steve Gruber Show. I'll take a break and be right back. A lot of people think you can't fight aging. Well, I disagree. I fight it every step of the way with everything I can come up with. Look, a lot of us do that, right? And one of the things you have to deal with is how your skin, hair, and nails look all the time. And I've got a gentleman with me today who you know. Joe Reek is the Vice President of Sales at Longevity. And Joe, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thanks, Steve. It's a pleasure to be on here with you guys again.
Look, I fight it every step of the way. I go to the gym. I eat right. I take great vitamins, right? I do this every day, mostly because Ivy says, take the vitamins and let's go to the gym. But I do it anyway. No matter how you look at it, I get it done. But there are certain things.
That's the important part.
Absolutely. You know, say yes to your wife. Open the door. Tell her you love her. All those things, too. But there are important things that you have to have in the mix. One of those things is collagen. It's something that's in Longevity, a product that you've been rolling out here the last few weeks. First of all, let's talk about what collagen is and what it does. Tell us about it.
So collagen is a peptide, and typically collagen is what's going to keep your hair, your skin, your nails growing. It keeps your skin from sagging. You know, like you mentioned, as we get older, our bodies tend to deteriorate, and there are natural supplements that our body produces naturally, but when we get a little bit of a bump through our diet, through nutrition, we can actually get more of those peptides into our system, which actually creates a better functioning body. And collagen is actually one of the pillars of the longevity formula mix. You know, we wanted to make sure that we were providing a well-balanced nutritional mix. So it wasn't only just focusing on protein, it wasn't just focusing on immunity, it wasn't just focusing on your gut health or with probiotics, but a more complete system. And collagen is actually one of the things that makes longevity. You know, there's a lot of different supplements out there. It's the dosage that really does matter. Most of your beauty products are going to have anywhere from 2 to 5 grams of collagen. And while that collagen is good, it's only enough to really affect a small portion of your body. Like it'll affect a little bit of your hair, a little bit of your skin. However, when you have collagen in a larger dose, you can begin to see the benefits throughout your whole body. So longevity features about 15 grams of collagen, which is 3 to 5 times more than your average beauty supplement. And when you have collagen in that large of a dose, you begin to see repairs in your joints, in your tendons, in everywhere else inside of your body. You're going to start noticing those differences a lot quicker, if that makes sense.
It all makes sense because longevity, for anybody who doesn't know, is a formula put together by Joe and his team, studied and backed by science with all of the things he talked about. But collagen, one of those big ingredients. It helps your diet, helps keep everything strong, flexible, and resilient. Look, I'm not 25 anymore, but I feel good, and I felt better since longevity. My kid takes it every day. He's got a basketball game tonight. You know what he's doing? He'll have a big longevity drink before he goes. They taste great, and it really helps him perform better. Anthony, you know, the guy behind the scenes here that everybody knows, and you just talked to, he's been using it for weeks now, too. Everybody loves this product because of all the great things it does. Now, I want to ask you about this because, like you mentioned, longevity has collagen, but a lot of other products do as well. Why is what you have and what you formulated better and more effective?
Well, it's going to be the dosage of these different ingredients. You know, we talked about collagen in a lower dose, like a 2 to a 5 milligram serving. Longevity is going to have 15 grams of collagen. And like I mentioned previously, when you ingest or when you consume that amount of collagen on a regular basis, not only is it going to help your skin, your hair, and your nails, but now it's going to go to other parts of your body, your joints, your tendons. It's going to help with your gut as well. And the cool thing is with longevity, this is your one-stop shop for nutrition. It's going to have everything that you're going to need for a well-balanced diet, as well as the supplementation that you're going to need. It's going to have 25 grams of protein, which protein is going to help keep your muscles going. It's going to help grow your muscles. It's going to have 15 grams of collagen, which we've been talking about. Joint elasticity, you know, your joints, the tendons, if you will. If you're using it, if you're active, you're not going to be as sore. It's going to help with that. There's DHA and omega-3 oils for brain health. There's included probiotics for your gut health to help regulate your gut so you can process those foods easier. It's going to also have real vitamins and real minerals from real food sources. In fact, I love reading off the ingredients because these are ingredients that you can actually read and understand. For example, when I go talk about what vitamins and minerals are in longevity? Well, we get our longevity formula based from these items from broccoli, spinach, kale, sweet potatoes, sunflower seed, shiitake mushrooms. These are all natural, bioavailable ingredients. So there's nothing synthetic inside of longevity.
And that's so important today. I mean, we've been talking about Make America Healthy again for a while now. Look, you want the ingredients out that you don't want, the funny colors, the things that are in there that are just junk. You want to make sure the preservatives are out of there. You don't have any of that. And I want to just touch on, you mentioned the science. I just want to touch on that again. Collagen has been tested in dozens of trials, considered very safe for long-term use. It does these things and keeps people going longer and stronger. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. It's 100% right. In fact, collagen has been around for decades, just like some of the other ingredients that we put into longevity, like DHA. There's been many studies over the years of how having higher levels of DHA in your system makes you think better. You're able to learn easier. You're able to retain knowledge better. It helps prevent the onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. And so if you're taking this on a regular daily basis, you're going to have exactly what the product says. You're going to have a longer, more fulfilled life and have the longevity that we're all looking for.
There you go. And if you're trying to lose weight, don't lose muscle and bone, it protects against that as well. Protein, DHA, omega-3s, probiotics, vitamins, minerals that help your body build and use the collagen effectively. It's incredibly important. And you can get yours today, longevitywellness.co. Again, 8 to 80, all points in between. Live a healthy, vigorous life. Longevitywellness.co. Use the promo code Gruber. You're going to get some special offers today, and you're going to have a chance to use this product that we use here every day. Joe, again, I really appreciate you being here, sir. Thank you so much, and such a great product.
My pleasure, Steve. Always a pleasure.
Thank you so much. All right, longevitywellness.co. Go find some today. You're going to be glad you did. And send me a note. Tell me what you think. Longevitywellness.co. We'll be right back. It's the Steve Gruber Show. Over the weekend in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, I mentioned this at the top of the program, United States Marines exchanged gunfire with suspected gang members. They were zeroing in on the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince. And U.S. Marines exchanged gunfire with what they believe were gang members there. Obviously, unsettling and concerning as that happens. Captain Stephen Keenan, in an email statement, said that Marines supporting embassy security operations were fired upon by suspected gang members in the capital of Port-au-Prince. U.S. Marines are committed to, here's part of the official announcement, U.S. Marines are committed to the safety and security of U.S. embassies worldwide and respond to all threats with professionalism and swift, disciplined action. No service members injured in the incident, which was first reported over the weekend by the Washington Post. It's just, I feel like we're back in the 1970s and 80s when U.S. embassies were targeted more often. Very concerning, of course, and thankfully nobody was hurt, but they're not messing around. That nation, Haiti, by the way, plagued by gang violence. Armed groups reportedly control 90% of that city, Port-au-Prince. So when they say they're gang members, it's based on experience and what they know on the ground. 28 degrees outside the alternative studio today. 28 degrees. Winter's basically almost here, which means it's flannel season. Muskox, the undisputed leader in heavyweight flannels, has you covered. The brand new heavyweight flannels are here. Already rated the best flannel by Gear Junkie magazine every year since 2023. I'll tell you the same. We all own them. I wear them everywhere. I got this shacket from Muskox that I'm wearing around the alternative studio yesterday. Love this thing. Not average shirts. Muskox flannels are crafted with the softest double-brushed 100% cotton that feels as good as it looks. It's an American company based in Detroit. Plus, every flannel gives back $5 to wildlife conservation. Every time you buy one, $5 goes to wildlife conservation. So step up your fall wardrobe. Visit gomuskox.com. Use the promo code Gruber, by the way. You'll save $15 off one of these great shirts. It'll be an heirloom. Your kids and grandkids will have this shirt long after we're gone. GoMuskox.com/Gruber. Again, the promo code Gruber, $15 off. Support the people that support these programs. And you're going to love this shirt. Trust me. GoMuskox.com. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll have another hour of the Steve Gruber Show after this. Something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent.
Come on, man.
We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
And welcome to it as we kick off another big hour here on the program from the Northern Compound and Alternative Studio number 1. Fighting for you from the Foxhole of Freedom. We've got one here as well. Who do you want in your foxhole when the chips are down? Big, important question. Here are 3 big things this hour. Number 1, the long saga of the civil case against O.J. Simpson may finally be coming to an end with $58 million in a settlement deal. A deal that can never be paid, but it is something. Number 2, the slanderous selective outrage aimed at President Trump over the infamous case of Jeffrey Epstein is boiling over, and Democrats are going to get what they have been demanding. They may not like it. We'll talk about that. And number 3, the economy. Affordability has been the hot debate for a while now. Affordability is the word that matters most for millions of Americans right now. There's no question about it. Affordability. You've sent me many emails, but I want more. Go to stevegruber.com. Tell me your biggest worry when it comes to paying the bills. Property tax comes up a lot. We're going to talk about that. The AXMI tax. If you are in Michigan, there is a move afoot to put it on the ballot next November to get rid of property tax in Michigan, just like they're working on in Florida. We'll talk about that in a minute. Kevin Hassett points out the real numbers in purchasing power from the Biden years and now. These numbers are a little comfort to those struggling, but it is an improvement. It's important for you to understand the numbers and the truth. Listen.
Well, first of all, if you look at the history of inflation, right, what happened was that there was runaway Democrat spending in Joe Biden's term, and we got inflation up almost to 10%. It averaged 5% over the 4 years. And that has created a situation where, for example, mortgage rates went up. And so the typical payment for a monthly mortgage payment almost doubled. That a bag of groceries that cost $400 a month when President Trump left office is $500 or $515 when President Trump came back this time. And so that there's this really big hole that's been dug. And then the question you could also ask as an economist is, how do I summarize all those different prices and everything? And one of the ways you could do it is just look at purchasing power, the real wage. Purchasing power, I'll just finish this and then I'll get back to it. The purchasing power dropped by about $3,000 under Joe Biden because the wages didn't keep up with prices. Under President Trump, it's already gone up by about $1,200. We understand that people still feel the pain of the high prices, but we're closing the gap and filling the gap fast.
I don't want to get into
Closing the gap. All right, so your purchasing power went down $3,000 under Joe Biden. It's come back part of the way, $1,200 roughly. But again, for people struggling, does that really matter? I mean, it's important to understand the numbers are better and that inflation is down and gas is down. $2.64, what I paid yesterday for regular gas. All right, so that's pretty good. Speaker Mike Johnson says progress is happening, including helping the economy. Here's what he says.
But the first 10 months of this administration in this Congress were the most productive of any in the modern era and arguably in all of history. Look at it on the Republican side, President Trump and our party. We did the biggest tax cuts in U.S. history. We're doing massive regulatory reform. We're cutting fraud, waste, and abuse out of government. We closed the border as we promised. We're solving the crime crisis. We have all these great things going in the economy, infused pro-growth policies in our big, beautiful bill. The president has ended 8 wars around the globe. All that in 9 months, 9.5 months. What have the Democrats done in the same time, Maria? They shut the government down. And they pushed ICE officers around, and they spurred on political violence. I mean, there's a big contrast, a wide chasm between the two parties. This is not your Democrat, your father's Democrat Party. They're Marxists now. They're radicals. And they are so disturbed that we are delivering for the people. They had to do anything they could to try to disrupt it, and the shutdown was their plan. It didn't work. It backfired. And I think now their leaders are going to lose their posts.
Yeah. Leaders are going to lose their posts. They're going to get primaried. Meanwhile, I want to take you to Florida, where things do seem to be working better than other places, the free state of Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis points out how well Florida does compared to New York and New York City when it comes to their budget and what they're spending and the results thereof. Listen.
Our state now has millions of more residents than New York State does, and yet New York State's budget is more than twice the size of the budget of the state of Florida. Their roads aren't better than ours. Their education's not better than ours. Their services aren't better than ours. I certainly wouldn't want to go to the DMV, in New York, especially when Mandami gets in. It's interesting. New York City has 8 million people, and this is even before Mandami takes over the grocery stores. Their budget's bigger than Florida's budget with 23.5 million people. And so we're able to do that at half the cost, and yet major initiatives for infrastructure acceleration, environmental restoration, education, you name it, we've done it. Debt. Take all the debt that Florida's had for 180 years. Just since I've been governor, we've retired half of it on my watch. And we now have the lowest per capita debt of any place in the United States, AAA credit rating, all that. Of course, that's what we have.
Yeah. Triple H credit rating, cut the debt back. I mean, this can be done. Oh, and by the way, when it comes to property tax, Governor DeSantis is supporting an end of property tax on homes in Florida, and therefore he supports the Axe MI Tax, axemitax.org. If you haven't signed the petition, you really need to. They're going to be close to the number of petition signatures they have in Michigan. And if you live there, you need to get this taken care of. Listen to what he says about property tax. Here's the governor again.
To higher taxes, such as higher property taxes, to pay for these spending habits. And these property taxes, it's like you buy a home, you buy land, maybe you buy the home outright, but maybe you pay off a mortgage over 30 years. And then, okay, you've paid off the mortgage, you bought the land, you've been taxed many times. It's like, is it your property or not? Just for being on your property, you got to write a check to the government every year. So you're basically paying rent to the government to live on your own property. And our homestead exemption is not strong enough to help these folks because the property gets assessed so high. And that's the thing. If you buy a home for $300,000 and there's certain tax, well, then what? 10 years later, they say it's worth $700,000. And so, and they say, there's homestead stuff that helps protect you to a certain extent, but you're paying more. And a lot of people can't afford that.
He's exactly right. That's for fighting then property tax in Michigan. Again, go to axemitax.org, axemitax.org. You can find out more. If you haven't signed the petition, get it signed. And if you want to circulate a petition, at your local gathering at church or your friends that get morning coffee, do that. Get us over the finish line. Need 460,000 signatures. They're close, but they need a buffer, of course. They do. Look, if you're on a fixed income and prices continue to go up, how do you pay that? How do you pay that? Right? That's the point that they're making. It's not fair to seniors, especially. Get rid of property tax like the governor of Florida is saying. He's right about that. We're going to take a break and be back. It is the Steve Gruber Show. All right, back to it now. Affordability. That is the word, I believe, going into the midterm elections that is going to be most critical. We're going to have a populist election in the midterms, probably in 2028 as well. The question is, will it be a left-wing populism or right-wing populism? Not really conservatism anymore. Not like it used to be, in fact, or liberalism. You've got Democratic Socialists who won in New York and Seattle, and it's what people can afford. We're going to talk about that and more with my next guest, Kurt Couchman, Senior Fiscal Policy Fellow at Americans for Prosperity. Kurt, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. Glad to be with you.
Glad to have you here. Look, I want to address this affordability thing before we get into how we prevent more of these ridiculous government shutdowns. One just ended after 43 days. Everything should be pretty much back to normal today, from what I understand. But affordability, that is what is driving voters. Look, Donald Trump tapped into that in 2016 and 2024. Mamdani tapped into that in New York City. Like it or not, he was talking about affordability with people and whether they could pay rent or buy groceries. It is a critical turning point, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And it's so many things across the economy, core things that everybody needs: housing, education, healthcare, energy. Like, these are all things that have just gone up in price way too much. And we have to have the right strategies for reducing their costs. The left often wants to subsidize things so that the price that consumers pay is lower, but that money has to come from somewhere. The real answer is largely to get government out of the way, reduce the regulations that make it harder for people to provide the services that other people want and need.
Yeah, absolutely true. You know, subsidies mean taxes. Taxes mean people get hit. And this is a real big question. We were just talking about in the last segment here. Property tax is a big conversation now. Governor DeSantis in Florida trying to end property tax. And he's basically, I think, providing a platform for the Republicans going forward. Get rid of property tax in this country because seniors are getting pinched by it. They've paid off their house. They're getting crushed. More taxes everywhere. Anyhow, let's talk about this government shutdown. It failed after 43 days. The Democrats voted for the same plan after 43 days they could have voted for on day one. What did they get out of it?
That's right. They got almost nothing out of it. They got a commitment for a vote in the Senate. There were some full-year appropriations bills, bipartisan appropriations bills that got tacked on, but those could have passed anyway. So there wasn't really a winner in the shutdown. There never really is. What happens is that people have these fever dreams of leverage going into a shutdown, and then they never really turn out the way that people think they will. So they got basically nothing, which is what happens with every shutdown.
Sure, Kurt. You know, the thing is, we didn't have government shutdowns when I was a kid. First one I can find is 1980 with Jimmy Carter. That's the first one I can find. This didn't happen. And now it's like each side tries to use as leverage. And like you say, it doesn't do much. Certainly for those that pushed the shutdown, which in this case was the Democrats, they can try to paint it however they wanted. But as soon as 8 Democrats came across, the shutdown was over. So it was a Democrat shutdown. But how do we avoid it at the end of January? How do we just stop doing this? It's irritating to the American people. It doesn't accomplish anything. Politically, it's a loser. So why don't we just avoid it?
We should just avoid it. I mean, the path that they're on right now is to try to pass the remaining 9 appropriations bills by that January 30th deadline. I'd like to believe that's possible, but I don't see it based on history. So the way to prevent government shutdowns is to take them off the table, make them no longer possible to happen. There's legislation to do that. It would force Congress and the White House Budget Office to stay in D.C. until they get the appropriations bills done. And in the meantime, there wouldn't be shutdown disruptions for the American people. Now, longer term, the real goal is to get lots of members of Congress invested in doing a single budget bill every single year that involves all the committees, lets all members participate. We're not there quite yet. Appropriations is a quarter of spending and really only involves one committee in each house. But after we prevent government shutdowns with the Prevent Government Shutdowns Act, then the next step is moving to a comprehensive congressional budget so that you get that bottom-up policy making that we really need to solve the problems for the American people.
Yeah, we need to do 12 appropriations bills, not continuing resolutions, not omnibus bills. I've always been a proponent of one issue, one vote, one issue, one vote. Well, it'll take too long. Well, then take extra time. Stop going home on vacation. If I had as much vacation as a member of Congress, I wouldn't know what to do with myself. To be honest with you, Kurt, it's remarkable how much time they get off and how much money they make on the side, but that's a different question. But all right, can you get 60 votes or whatever it would take to get behind what you just said, the end the government shutdown bill. Can we get there?
I think so. I mean, Republicans are largely unified. There are a number of Democrats that support this as well. In fact, the latest iteration was reintroduced in the House, and they're doing like a Noah's Ark thing with one Republican, one Democrat. And last I checked, they're up to 7 on each side in the House. And it's really a question of context and timing. I mean, everything's about timing in this business. But ultimately, yeah, it is possible to get it done. Everybody has understood what a problem shutdowns are, and it doesn't make sense. Now, on the single subject bill, I absolutely agree when it comes to authorizations. But when it comes to budgeting, you have to have everything together so that everything's competing against everything else, and legislators can decide what has higher value than the other thing. So I guess it is one bill, but it's a broader scope than the traditional authorization single subject.
And that's fair. Yeah. Noah's Ark. Yeah, it rained 40 days and 40 nights of nonsense is what it did with the government shutdown. I'll give you the last word here, Kurt. We need to get past this for the country. It just creates problems that are avoidable. Last word to you.
That's right. I mean, Congress is not the highly functional legislature that we need. It could be. There's no reason why it has to be this dysfunctional. And so we've been working with legislators of both parties to develop solutions, including the Prevent Government Shutdowns Act, including the Comprehensive Congressional Budget Act. And we believe that if we continue to push and members of Congress understand how important it is for the American people, and also for how much it would improve the quality of their service as legislators, then we can absolutely get this done, and in the next couple of years even.
Yeah. Kurt Couchman, greatly appreciate you being here. Americans for Prosperity, working hard to try to make things more functional in Washington. Good luck with that, Kurt. It takes a lot of work, but thank you.
It does indeed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. The Avoid Government Shutdowns Act, or End Government Shutdowns Act. Pretty good idea, I think. We've had enough of it, all right? I'll take a break and be back. Welcome to a Monday on the Steve Gruber Show. Billionaire hedge fund manager Bill Ackman is going to put forth a plan for Fannie and Freddie, the mortgage finance giants that have been under federal conservatorship since 2008's financial crisis. Ackman said in a post on X that his plan would allow the Trump administration, quote, to achieve all of its objectives of maximizing value for taxpayers, eliminating the risk of mortgage spreads widening, and enabling the U.S. Treasury to demonstrate a mark-to-market value for its shareholdings in the two companies. Ackman said the live stream scheduled for tomorrow will outline the proposal in detail. He added that the transaction could be completed before year's end, meeting the expectations of all stakeholders, including you and I, the taxpayers. He also aimed to clarify market speculation, saying Pershing Square has not sold our stake in the two companies and remains the largest common shareholder of both, with more than 210 million shares combined. He suggested folding Fannie and Freddie into a single entity to cut costs, reduce mortgage rates. He said it would streamline the housing finance system and unlock shareholder value. We'll see what happens. That's tomorrow with Bill Ackman putting that proposal together. We've got to make, again, this comes back to affordability. It all comes back to affordability, and we want to make sure we push it forward. If you've got a well in your yard, you are halfway to having a geothermal system. It's a remarkable way to add a well connect in about 8 hours and save up to half on your heating and cooling bill with no major renovations. But don't take it from me. Take it from the people who've done it. One customer said, it's the best investment we've made in our home. Another said, no more propane headaches, and it paid for itself fast. Right now, you can still get the 30% federal tax credit, but it is expected to expire at the end of the year. This is a remarkable system, made in America, made in Michigan. It's patented. WellConnectGeo.com. Built for your well, loved by real people, and it really will cut your bills dramatically. WellConnectGeo.com. Go check it out. See the videos. See if it's a good fit for you. If you're a do-it-yourself person, you can do it. If you're an HVAC person, you can join the team now. They're looking for HVAC people. And if you don't do it yourself, hire your favorite HVAC company to get it done for you. WellConnectGeo.com. Find out if you're a good fit. Propane, heating oil, wood, however you heat this, a pile of money. WellConnectGeo.com. Made in Michigan. I'll be right back. All right, back at it here as we kick off this week, this Monday, and move through the big topics that you are paying attention to. Join me is Judge Phil Ginn. He is the president in Southern Evangelical Seminary, ses.edu, if you want to know more. What New York City has to look forward to coming January 1. We've talked about the taxes. We've talked about the elimination of police in favor of social workers. But what else is going to happen? Judge, thank you for being here.
Always my pleasure, Steve. Good to see you this morning.
Good to see you. All right. So, anti-Semitism is moving into the mayor's office, apparently, and a lot of other places throughout his administration. What can we expect in New York City beginning January 1 when Mamdani is sworn in as the new person in charge of Gotham?
Well, I think a key word may be destabilization. If that's even possible in New York, I think it's already occurred to some extent. But I think that's probably the goal of what the new mayor is going to be about.
So, when you say that, what are we talking about? What are we going to look at here? Destabilization. Look, the police department, one of the premier anti-terrorist operations inside the NYPD, best in the world, by the way, ever since 9/11. The NYPD became very, very good at rooting out terrorism, as an example. Apparently, the mayor wants to get rid of that. That is foolish, reckless, and dangerous, isn't it?
Well, it certainly is, and group hugs just don't normally work with gangs and terrorists and that sort of thing. But what I mean by destabilization is it's a classic tactic of socialists and other folks who would be subversive in regard to a government like we have in the country. And what they want to see is all of the different entities within our government begin to break down so that chaos ensues, and then they come in with a supposed answer to the problem. And it happened in Nazi Germany. I think a lot of times, Steve, folks, and when it comes to socialism, focus on the economics of it, and I'm not sure that's the key with socialists in America, because our economy has been fairly robust and continues to be fairly robust.
But
Folks
the
may be.
problem, Judge, if I may be so bold here, for young people, those that are in that 18 to 30, the Gen Zers, right, in that 18 to 30 age range, they don't think it's affordable. The economy's not working for them. They feel like they've not been heard. And look, my take on it's pretty straightforward. The same vein that Donald Trump tapped into, so did Mamdani. Hey, let me help you with your rent payment. Let me help you with making more money. Let me help you not struggling to make ends meet at the end of the month. I mean, the approach is completely different, obviously, but that's what these young people, 82% of the young women who voted in the New York mayoral election voted for Mamdani. 82% of young women voting for the socialists. I don't think they've been very well educated, but here we are.
Well, that's part of the destabilization with the educational process. And part of it is certainly real. I know that I've got children and grandchildren, and it's tough for them to get started. Still, it's better than it is in most countries that you go to for young people, because they've got at least a shot at it here in coming around. But what you see is this fight between fascism, if you want to call it that, and communism. And you remember in Germany, the greatest opponent of communism was, or Nazism was communism. And so then you get to the bottom line, the Nazi regime was socialist in its nature as well. So there's not a lot of difference between the end result of fascism and communism. And that's
Agreed.
what the fight's over now.
You know, I don't think there's left and right. I think there's a circle of politics. I've never seen the left, because they meet at some point. As you just pointed out, Judge, they do meet at some point. Look, one of the most remarkable exchanges I've seen recently of the late Charlie Kirk talking to a college kid who was studying economics, had never heard of Milton Friedman, had never heard of Thomas Sowell. How are we teaching people about anything if they don't know about these things? The Great Leap Forward, 1958-59 China, led by Mao Zedong, where 50 million Chinese died. I've asked young people, what do you know about the Great Leap Forward? They're like, what is that? They don't even know, Judge. We're not educating people about anything. And Thomas Jefferson was clear, you need a well-educated electorate. We don't have that. It's a dangerous time.
We've certainly done a lot to almost satanic in what has occurred with Generation Z. I mean, you look at what we've taught them in school. You look at all of the different factors that have come into play with them, and ultimately saw a statistic the other day that's just startling. We've aborted 28% of Generation Z.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that statistic. That's startling and chilling. 28%. aborted.
28%, and that's almost a third, obviously. And yet, you mentioned something in passing that I think is so important, Steve. It's this generation that may save us from ourselves. Um, I
Or it
see
won't.
this generation reacting in a way that is different from previous generations, and that I see a revival breaking out in this generation.
Well, there is that, and there's people argue about the word revival. I don't care what you want to call it, a reawakening, a reimagining, a revival,
How about
whatever it is.
resurrection?
Well, I like that word. There's a 15% increase in church attendance. There's a 40% increase in Bible sales. There's an 80% increase in downloads of Christian apps on people's phones and computers. Something's happening, Judge. That's for sure.
It is. They're oftentimes not sure what they're looking for, but they're looking for something different. You look at what's happening in Mexico. I mean, it's almost a revolution in Mexico, and it's coming from Generation Z, and they're just tired of being controlled by the cartels and wanting their
Well, they're
government
looking.
to
Here's what I think they're
work
looking for, Judge. I think they're looking for truth.
out.
Truth.
Absolutely. And
After so much garbage has been peddled on social media and elsewhere, these young people want absolute black and white truth. Enough of them anyway to make a difference. I think you're right.
I just see it coming. I live in a college town here in Boone, North Carolina. 22,000 kids on Appalachian State University campus, and now we're seeing a major return to church that matters. Not just the churches we've been doing it in the past, where there's not a lot of content, but they're looking for something that they can sink their teeth into and hold on to, and that will hold them up. And I think we're going to see a great resurrection. In fact, if you look at the anecdotal issues around our college campuses, you look at Auburn, you look at Ohio State University, it just goes on and on. Florida State University. And these are student led. They're not coming from this resurrection is not coming from the church. It's coming from the students themselves.
Yeah. There's a big change coming, Judge. I think you're right. We need to educate people, give them truth, give them the opportunity, give them hope. Maybe that's what it is. Judge, thank you for being here.
It's always my pleasure, Steve. Look forward to the next time.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, maybe it's hope. And maybe that's what Gen Z is looking for, hope and opportunity. Think about these things because it's important. They are going to decide the future. And you better work hard to make sure it's a future that you think. Look, you've been around for a while. So have I. We need to make sure they choose wisely. So we need to educate them at home, at school, wherever we can talk to them. I'll take a break. It's the Steve Gruber Show. I use AI every day to fact check things or to bounce things off, and I challenge the AI machines that I get. Sometimes they're wrong, and I challenge them on that. But it is a good place to do some research and so forth. But where does it take us in national security? Where does it take us, right? You can find out things about people they didn't even know was available online. It's a problem. Joining me now is Chris Hoare, a disaster response and telecom national security spokesperson for SAT 123. Chris, thank you for being here.
Pleasure, Steve. Good morning.
Yeah, there's a battle between China and the United States right now when it comes to AI. And your concern is a world war between China and the United States over AI. Look, we're building out, they're building out, they've got AI, we've got AI. There's a race here. It's akin to the space race of the 1960s and 70s, isn't it?
I mean, yes, it is. That's a great comparison. I mean, what China's looking to do is to totally dominate AI by the end of 2030, which is the end of their latest 5-year plan. And they've been on this a long time, Steve. What they've been doing is they've been rolling up the world's supply of rare earth elements. These are the components that are irreplaceable when it comes to building things like semiconductors, fiber optics, screens, and so on. They've been doing this for a long time, and they've been very successful, unfortunately. Right now, they control about 60 to 70% of the world's rare earth element mining supply and about 90% of the world's refining capacity for rare earth elements. And without these elements, we just don't have the ability to build what we need if we want to continue the race or dominate it, certainly.
I think the problem you've identified is the real problem, which is refining capacity. We have the rare earths here in the United States. We have it in North America. Between ourselves and Canada, we have tremendous volumes of these things. We don't have the refining capacity. That was a strategical error. How critical is it, and can we catch up?
I mean, I think, yes, we can catch up, according to those who know a lot more about it than I, but it's going to take time and it's going to take money. And the Chinese have been dedicating huge amounts of resources towards winning this AI race for a long time, and they're continuing to do that. Of course, they also don't suffer from the need to get the backing of their people. They do whatever they want. And so that they are moving ahead quickly. Look, if you're a research facility, university, private company in China, you are obliged to share your technology and your progress with the government. That is, of course, not true here. And I don't think any of us want to see that, but this has given them, a great edge over the U.S. And again, especially with the lack of regulations that they have, because the regulations are whatever the CCP feels like at the time.
Yeah, the CCP, they run everything. You're right. They're obliged. They're required to share anything they find, learn, do. And that's true of the 600,000 Chinese students that come to America every year as well, which I find problematic. The CCP, interestingly enough, only represents about 10% of the population of China, yet they run the whole place with an iron fist. So that's not going to change. What does America need to do? What's left of the Western world need to do to remain competitive, to remain in this race?
Well, I think we need to really focus and encourage innovation and clear the red tape. I understand there's some red tape is there for a good reason, but a lot of it is not. Environmental concerns, political concerns, often get in the way when it comes to learning. The questions over the Fair Use Act have resulted in, numerous lawsuits with astronomical settlements amount that are being sought. And all of this is delaying regulation. So I think the best thing we can do is clear the red tape. And then we are starting to see some states like New Hampshire clear the way for private companies to build power stations, including nuclear reactors, without being designated as utilities. Because look, power is really at the core of all of this. If we don't have the power, we can't build the data centers, we can't run them to process all this data. So the government needs to be an incubator for AI, and we need to cooperate with Europe as well and encourage them to do the same thing, because this is a war we can't afford to lose, Steve.
I agree, and you brought it back to something incredibly important, and that is energy. Without vast quantities of cheap energy, America was never going to prosper. That's what it's always taken. From the time I was born through today, it takes even more now. This fool's errand pursuing windmills and solar panels, sold to us by China most often, has put us in a disadvantage, hasn't it?
It has, yeah, and again, unfortunately, the U.S. has always been on the cutting edge of innovation when it comes to energy production. But back in the 70s and 80s, we abandoned a lot of our advanced nuclear programs that China then picked up on and has kind of restarted and grown. Such as the fast breeders and the gas cooled reactors that are really what's going to be necessary to power these massive data centers. And every day we require more energy than the day before, not just because of the population growth, but because of processing AI data. So we can look back to them and say, okay, we made some mistakes, but it's time to correct those. We can, what we're better at than them is innovation. We always have been, but when it gets bogged down by political concerns or red tape, that's really been our stumbling point. So we need to free up our companies and our capital and our people to win this war. And I think if we do that, then we'll be in great shape. But we don't have a long time to do it, because China's churning out tons of different cheap AI products.
They sure are.
And they control the standards on those products. If we lose the world standard to China in AI, then they really get to dictate the future.
Chris, I really appreciate you being here. It's a red flag warning. Pay attention, folks. It's an important turning point. So many things going on. This is one of those critical pivot points we have to focus on. Chris, thank you for your input today. Really appreciate it. A lot to think about. Don't need to panic, but you do need to pay attention. You do need to work hard and be steadfast. I'll take a break. I'll be back with sports and Brock after this. All right, let's check in with Brock in sports.
With a look at sports, I'm Brock Palmbush. Week 11 of the NFL saw 13 games on the schedule yesterday. AFC winners included Houston, Miami, Denver, and Baltimore. NFC winners included Carolina, Green Bay, the Los Angeles Rams, and Chicago. Philadelphia beat Detroit in the Sunday night game 16-9. There were 8 games in the NBA yesterday. Winners included Boston, Brooklyn, San Antonio, and Dallas. In the NHL, there were 5 games. Winners were Pittsburgh, Detroit, Minnesota, Vancouver, and Colorado. In men's college basketball, number 1 Houston outlasted 22nd ranked Auburn 73-72. Other top 25 winners were number 2 Purdue and number 10 Florida. In women's college basketball, number 1 Connecticut, number 4 Texas, and number 6 Oklahoma all won easily. And in baseball, the Seattle Mariners re-signed first baseman Josh Naylor to a 5-year contract. That's a look at sports. Back to you, Steve.
All right, Brock, the real concern here in Lionland is, are they not going to make the playoffs? It's pretty concerning.
It is a concern, but they got a game they can win against the New York Giants this Sunday in Detroit. They'll need to win that. They're also going to need to win on Thanksgiving Day in Detroit, the traditional Thanksgiving game, this time against Green Bay. Need to avenge that loss from opening day. And then they play Dallas the following Thursday night in Detroit. They got 3 home games coming up in a row, and they got to win all of them.
Or they're not going to make the playoffs. Now, where are they most injury prone? Where are the biggest problems?
Right now, offensive line and secondary.
Yeah. The offensive line is what's killing them.
Losing Sam Laporta, their starting tight end, is a real problem.
Yeah, he's gone, right?
3 more weeks at least.
Yeah. No good for the Lions. Where have the Lions gone? Good Lord. They were on track to be the greatest team of they played great, but injuries continue to plague the Lions. I guess that's just the way it is. People get hurt. That's the way it is. How's your team doing where you are? All right, good to know. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're talking about democratic socialism, Mamdani, and young women voting for him after this. Always something to make you look around and say, hey, you know what? I live in a pretty great country. President Trump is calm, on point, on his game. And unlike the last guy, he is competent and coherent. Come on, man. We're not bending the knee anymore. We're here to take a stand for God and country.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
And welcome to it, my friends, as we launch another brand new hour into orbit here, the Steve Gruber Show. I'm glad you're here with me, fighting for you from the foxhole of freedom every single day. Who do you want in your foxhole? Live in a pretty complicated world. You might want to figure out who's with you on that. All right, three big things this hour. Number one, the government shutdown now in the rearview mirror after 43 days of nonsense. TSA agents and others are getting their checks. Some getting bonus checks. $10,000 to some TSA workers. Pretty nice. Number two, Michigan out hunting all weekend. I saw probably 50 deer. Didn't shoot any. Didn't see one I liked. All right, and we'll talk about that coming up. And number three, the continued focus on Jeffrey Epstein. Apparently tomorrow, the House is going to vote to release the Epstein files, whatever that means, and what can be released and what will be redacted. The Democrats will do their level best to try to tie Donald Trump to it, but so far it's been a lesson in futility. Donald Trump apparently was the guy helping prosecutors, investigators, and attorneys for victims to find the truth about Epstein, right? Let's go back to 2015. This is right after Donald Trump announced his run for president, early in the race, middle of 2015. And he hung Jeffrey Epstein around the neck of Bill and Hillary Clinton. Why would he do that if there was something more to it? Listen to this.
You raised the question of Jeffrey Epstein in your remarks about in the Q&A.
Well, I think he's got a problem. I mean,
what do you think the problem will be?
I don't know, but that island was really a cesspool. There's no question about it. Just ask Prince Andrew. He'll tell you about it. The island was an absolute cesspool. So,
the Clintons are friends
and he's
of
been
yours,
there
right?
for many times.
The Clintons are friends
well,
of
I can't say friends, but I know
You're
them.
friendly. You know them.
They play at my clubs a lot. I have clubs, and everybody likes to play at my clubs.
Are you saying there's a political problem for her if she runs for president?
It could be a political problem. Look, he could be a political problem. Right now, he's Teflon, and right now, maybe not. But he could end up being a political problem.
That's one question.
Could end up being a problem. A political problem. A real problem. That was 2015. He points out Prince Andrew in those comments as well. As we all know, he's basically been excommunicated from the royal family in the UK. He doesn't even have the title of prince anymore. He's just Andrew, whatever he is, right? Andrew Windsor, I think, right? The Windsor family, but he's out because of everything here. So Donald Trump was right about him, and he was right about Bill Clinton, and he was right about that island being a cesspool. Why would he do all of those things and say all of those things if he was connected to Epstein, which he was not apparently? And again, all evidence seems to indicate that Donald Trump might have been a whistleblower. That has not been confirmed, but it's clear from the attorneys that worked on the case for the victims that Donald Trump was one of the only people who helped them openly to get to the truth. I mean, that's what we know. So I look forward to the Epstein files being released tomorrow. Donald Trump telling the DOJ to look into all the connections to Epstein. He says Democrats, but really anybody. If you're guilty of being involved with the Epstein, child trafficking, my God, we need to have that figured out. And now. That's what I say. All right. So here's a complete takedown of the whole Epstein debacle, by the way. Barry Levine, he is a researcher. He is a guy who knows about Epstein. He is an author. And here's what he said about Epstein on CNN. Listen.
2011 email. We'll put it up on the screen, and I will ask you, the dog that hasn't barked is Trump. What do you think he's referring to?
Well, I think Jeffrey Epstein is referring to the fact that he believes that Donald Trump talked to Michael Ryder, who was the Palm Beach police chief in 2004, and began the first investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. I suspect that Jeffrey Epstein, in his conversation or email with Maxwell, was saying he was 75% there, believing that Trump might have been the whistleblower at the time. Again, you have to remember that particular year, the two men had a falling out. not only over the fact that Ghislaine Maxwell was taking young women from his spa at Mar-a-Lago for Jeffrey Epstein, but they also had a nasty real estate deal that both men were trying to get. So there was bad blood between the two of them.
Yeah, bad blood. Not some cordial relationship. They weren't friends. He wasn't jumping on the Lolita Express to go to that island cesspool. And that's not all Levine had to say. Here's some more.
So it's a combination then of the Trump being the dog who didn't bark and that additional line on that email. We'll put it back on the screen. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there, meaning he's 75% there to believing that Trump is an informant against him?
That is what I believe based on my research of years of the Jeffrey Epstein story.
Okay, but
you also have to
Barry,
remember that
Barry,
the House Speaker at one point,
Barry, if Donald Trump were an informant, if Donald Trump dropped the dime on Jeffrey Epstein, why wouldn't he today, in this climate, be shouting it from the mountaintops? I'm the one who put him away.
That's a question that only the president can answer. And again, the Palm Beach police have never said that Donald Trump was an informant. However, not too long ago, the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, said that Donald Trump was an informant on this particular case. So it is rather confusing.
Yeah, it is rather confusing in that light, but we'll see. Donald Trump telling the DOJ to look into the Epstein matter. Said it yesterday on social media, said, hey, get out there and look into it. These emails have turned out to be nothing. Virginia Giuffre was the quote-unquote victim who wrote in her book that Donald Trump did nothing wrong. Not in front of her ever. And we played the victims earlier who said, no, did you ever see Donald Trump do anything wrong? Whole room full of Epstein victims, they all said no. All of them. So Democrats, I say again, be careful what you wish for because you might just get it. And what you might just get is the truth about who's involved. And I'm going to say, look, that clip from 2015, Donald Trump had it nailed with Prince Andrew. And is there anybody here who doubts that Bill Clinton was involved here? I mean, Epstein had a painting of Bill Clinton in a blue dress in his Manhattan, apartment. Do you think that was just by accident? No. Epstein saying, hey, Bill, I got you. So don't mess around. Anything you do, I've got you. The 27 times Clinton was on the plane, something like that, according to the manifest. Oh, yeah. There's something going to come out of this, and it's not Donald Trump on the other side. I mean, how many times do you have to hear the Democrats? We got him now. It's Russia. It's Epstein. Please, stop it. Just stop it. All right, socialism. Young women seem to favor it. Mamdani won in New York. We now have a Democratic socialist candidate running for mayor in Los Angeles, challenging Mayor Bass. So it's going to metastasize. It is. We'll talk about it straight ahead on the Steve Gruber Show. All right. The research is clear, and what we find is democratic socialists are gaining traction on the question of affordability. Young people, especially young women, 82% of them broke from Mamdani in New York City, right? They did. And that's a concern. You've got a socialist, democratic socialist jumping into the race in Los Angeles. You had the Democratic Socialists win in Seattle. So this is metastasizing around the country, powered by young women. Chris Talgo is a socialism research fellow at the Heartland Institute, joining me now. Chris, thank you for being on the program.
Hey, great to be here.
Good to have you here. Look, what is this? Why young women powering this socialist future in America?
Well, I don't think it's just young women. I think it's young people across the spectrum. We just did a poll. We polled nearly 1,500 people under the age of 39 from across the country, and overwhelmingly, even among self-identified conservatives, Republicans, those making above $200,000 per year, they generally think that the democratic socialist solutions to this affordability crisis are going to make their lives better when, obviously it's going to make their lives 10 times worse.
Yeah, socialism has a perfect track record of failure in this world. Perfect track record. They can look anywhere they want to see how it's worked, and they say, well, what about Finland and Sweden? Those are basically capitalist countries with a socialist underpinning, but they're mostly capitalist. And so when people point to the problem we have, Chris, people don't read, they don't understand, and they think that they're going to get solutions from taxing the rich, eat the rich, until there aren't any. I mean, it doesn't work, does it?
Yeah, so I'm a former high school social studies teacher. I taught in public schools in Illinois and South Carolina for a bunch of years. And one of the things I noticed was that a bunch of my colleagues were actually teaching them that socialism's good, that it just hasn't been done properly yet. So I think that, coupled with the fact that these young people are, they are smitten with the slick campaign of Mamdani and his TikTok videos, and he just does these little socialist sound bites. And yeah, on its face, it does sound like it's doable. But obviously, if they learned their history, they would know that the Soviet Union, like you said, was an utter failure. East Germany, North Korea, we can go on, Cuba. And they just keep saying, well, we're going to do it differently this time. And you can't do it differently because, like you said, socialism is doomed to fail. It's anti-human nature. All it's going to do is create more poverty by driving out the productive people from New York City. We are already seeing that happening, and you're going to get the same thing in Seattle, and you're kind of already getting the same thing in Chicago. We might not have a hardcore socialist mayor, but Brennan Johnson is basically doing the same thing. And what's happening? The people are fleeing the city of Chicago.
Why wouldn't you? So what happens when states like Tennessee and Florida throw their doors open to these people fleeing? Do they come there and say, okay, we want to be part of what you're doing, or do they come and change the politics there and turn red states blue?
Well, I think that's a big question going forward, because one of the things our poll showed us was that young people in general, like I said, conservatives, Republicans, those making more than $200,000, they do want to see a democratic socialist in the White House come 2028. So that's something that the Republican Party in particular is going to have to do a very good job of here in the next few years. First of all, admitting that there is an affordability crisis, especially with regards to housing. 74% of the people in our poll said that they think housing is at a crisis level. That is very untenable, for people in the younger generation to think that the American dream is over and the only thing that can save us is democratic socialism. So the Republican Party, in all the states and at the local level as well, because a lot of these issues can be solved at the local level with, undoing some of these crazy zoning laws, the permitting processes, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of work to be done, but there are free market solutions to the affordability crisis, which is absolutely real for young people in America.
Are there free market solutions that can be evident within the next 6 months? Because really, Chris, short of that, this socialism fever dream is going to take hold of America in November of 2026. And if we go that way, if a democratic socialist becomes president in 2028, 29, whatever, January, I don't think there's ever a recovery from that. I think it's over.
Oh, I agree.
The country that you grew up in would be over.
And I think that what we need to do is offer short-term and long-term solutions. So a long-term solution is that states need to make sure that they are properly educating the young people about socialism. So Florida passed a law last year that does just that. I think that's a great solution. But also we've got a supply problem. So there's
Well, of
not enough
course we have a
housing
supply
units.
problem. We brought
Yeah,
in 20 million people that needed someplace to live illegally. Of course we
exactly,
have a supply problem.
and that's why that problem is so obvious in New York City because so many of them went to New York City. A nationwide rent freeze, which most people in our polls say, oh, that's gonna solve the problem. Of course, that's not going to solve the problem. What we need to do is we need to make it easier to build homes. We need to get rid of these crazy environmental laws, the onerous permitting process. Look at Los Angeles. It's been almost a year since
Yeah.
that terrible fire there last year, and
Nothing's
almost none of
happened.
those houses have been
Everything
rebuilt. Exactly. Right.
clean the place up, Chris, and I suspect they're not going to. By the way, if you're looking for a place that you can afford, Pittsburgh tops the list. $249,000 is the median price of a home in Pittsburgh. So if you want to go to the Steel City, you can make it there. Just a little an aside. Chris, thank you for being here. Socialism is a horrible thing. We've done a terrible job. Jefferson said we need a well-educated electorate to run this country. Well, we don't have that. We've got a lot of people that have been taught by your former colleagues that socialism's good, and we've turned out a generation of imbeciles, unfortunately, in large part. Thank you for being here.
You bet. Have a great day.
Yeah, we don't teach anybody anything. When I talk about the great leap forward, and people go, like, well, what's that? I asked a young man, the greatest mass murderer of the 20th century. He says, Osama bin Laden. No, dude. Chairman Mao of China killed tens of millions of his own people through starvation, through overt acts of murder. We don't teach our kids anything anymore. History matters a lot. Anyhow, I'll be back. Well, Senator Fetterman's recovering. He took quite the spill, apparently. 20 stitches in the face. Yeah. That's quite the spill, isn't it? Sounds like something I would do, actually. But John Fetterman, Democrat, shared a photo on social media. I looked at it. Looked pretty well smashed up, he did. He posted 20 stitches later and had a full recovery. I'm back home with Giselle Fetterman and the kids. I'm overwhelmed, profoundly grateful for all the well wishes, truly. Grateful to the UPMC, that's University of Pennsylvania Medical Center, for the incredible medical care. They put me back together. Thank you so much. See you back in D.C. The center was hospitalized Thursday after a fall due to a ventricular fibrillation flare-up. He had a little heart flare-up and smacked his face. During the early morning walk, Fetterman sustained a fall near his home in Braddock. Out of an abundance of caution, he was transported to the hospital in Pittsburgh. Upon evaluation, established that a ventricular fibrillation flare-up led to Fetterman feeling lightheaded and falling to the ground. Anyhow, he's doing well and receiving routine observation at the hospital. He has opted to stay so doctors can fine-tune his medication regimen. Yeah. He said he's thankful for the EMTs, the doctors, and the nurses who provided his care. I can understand that. Having spent time in a hospital or two along the way. Yeah. This part of the program brought to you by my good friends at Home Title Lock. Did you know that American homeowners nationwide have over $32 trillion in equity? Cyber criminals are targeting it with a growing scam the FBI calls house stealing. Your house alarm, all of that doesn't matter. They're not after your stuff. They're after your equity. And if your title isn't being monitored, scammers can transfer it into their name, start taking loans against it, or possibly even sell your house behind your back. You wouldn't even know it till the letters show up in the mailbox. Triple Lock Protection at Home Title Lock will protect you against that. Triple Lock Protection, 24/7 monitoring. Tells you if there's been any change, and God forbid if the worst happens, they'll spend $1 million to put you back right. Check on your home's title today. Make sure you're not already a victim. Use the promo code Gruber at HometitleLock.com. HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. Make sure your title is still in your name and get free title history report plus a free 14-day trial of their $1 million Triple Lock protection. That's HometitleLock.com, promo code Gruber. All right, back at it now as we dig back into this program. State Representative Mike Hoadley is with me. He's from the 99th District here in the Michigan House of Representatives. Mike, how are you?
Doing great, Steve. Thanks for having me this morning.
Tell me about the 99th. Where is it so people have a reference?
Yeah, so the 99th District is starting about the bottom of the Saginaw Bay going up through Oscoda. So if we were to use that ever so popular Michigan map, I'm from here to here,
yeah,
over to about central of the state and down. So 4 counties in whole, and a couple partials. So it's right in the heart of God's country.
there you go. And the heart of deer hunting country for the last, well, it's in the middle of it now after opening weekend, of course.
You got
Yeah, big. I mean, Saginaw Bay, it's a sportsman's paradise, that whole stretch right there. Anyhow, you've got a plan here. And I think this is pretty interesting and pretty important, Mike, which is you've got a plan here that says we're only going to reward people with real economic rewards if they actually have job creation. How many times have we seen this governor among them? Oh, we're going to get all these jobs. We're going to give all this money away from the MEDC and all these other people. And then it doesn't happen, or the place goes bankrupt, or I mean, the list of failures is long and sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. There's definitely a history of failure going back over 2 decades. And the reality is over those 2 decades, it's cost the Michigan taxpayers over $20 billion with
billion with a B,
little,
$20 billion. And what did we get out of that $20 billion?
Very few jobs, a lot of overpromises, underdeliver. And over the last 2 years, it's been, $2 billion with 0 jobs created, and we look at the dismal failures of what we've had with the Goshen plant and the Blue Oval site, as well as Sandisk. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And we've had policies that, are waiting for a Hail Mary or swinging for the fences, wanting, one hit to get us, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 jobs rather than focusing on the job creators we have throughout the whole state.
Yeah. So how do we get there? Because, you're right. Overpromise, underdeliver. That's been a track record. Gretchen Whitmer, I mean, I can hold her accountable, but she's not the only one. Promises of jobs have come from Republicans and Democrats alike. They're all guilty. And do they think that they're getting something out of it? Do they get, I mean, let me just be a little bit jaded here, Mike. Are they getting money into their campaign coffers? Are they getting something for themselves? What's going on here?
Well, I mean, we've seen that with the recent deal with the governor and, a $4,500 coffee maker, tens of thousands in trips to, a friend of her campaign. Yeah, so we see that. Now, I'm not going to demonize that. I think for the most part, the intentions are to create the jobs. But again, I think the plan has been very narrow as focusing certain types of job that would fit a political agenda rather than, look, we'll rebuild this economy one job at a time. And that's what this plan really takes hold of.
Yeah. So, all right. So how do you get support for this? I mean, I agree with you because, look, I think the best ways to attract economic development would be getting rid of income tax, having better infrastructure, paring back our state spending, which is, $30 billion more annually than is spent by the state of Pennsylvania by comparison. I mean, it's remarkable. State of Georgia, same size state, also spends significantly less than Michigan. Georgia is basically the same size now. And yet we outspend them all and, talk about the law of diminishing returns. What do we get in return for any of it? I mean, Georgia has better roads. Pennsylvania has better roads. It's an easy example. And here we are spending more and more and more and spinning our wheels. I mean, I'm a little frustrated. You are too, I'm sure.
Yeah, you're spot on. So we need to look at this as, the two I's in investment as well as incentives. Then we start talking the basis of what you're talking about here, which is, infrastructure. Energy is a major concern. Regulation reform, tax reform, workforce development. We have to look at all 6 of these major topics when we're looking at economic development and bringing the state forward. So then, we look at the past failures and we say enough is enough. And we're going to pivot to things being, when we talk about incentivizing, we're going to look at performance-driven incentives, meaning perform, then get the incentive, and without that costing taxpayers upfront money.
Yeah, is that what other states like Georgia and Florida and Tennessee do, among other things? I mean, you see so much business going to states like that.
Yeah,
Why?
well,
What?
I mean, weather, obviously fair weather's an advantage, of course, but energy, those states there, we're not talking about clean energy mandates and an administration that's trying to drive technology rather than a free market prevail. And again, regulations, the cost of doing business, it's amazing. My counterparts on the other side of the aisle, they'll recognize that, oh my gosh, these tariffs, well, tariffs are a tax, and them taxes are going to get passed on to the consumer. I find it a little bit disingenuous that they don't also recognize that when you raise the cost of doing businesses in our businesses here in the United States, more particularly in Michigan, that also gets passed along to the consumer.
If I may, Mike, tax is a tax too. Actual tax is a tax. I mean, I'm just going to point out the obvious here. And if I'm not mistaken, Michigan was the only state in America last year to raise income taxes. The only one. Others were eliminating taxes. And in fact, in Florida, and I support the semi-tax push by the grassroots of Michigan. Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida right now trying to eliminate property tax in Florida because it's a tax on seniors. Their property tax keeps going up, but their fixed income doesn't. Not enough to keep up with property tax assessments that are killing our seniors. Look, we've got to stop this nonsense. Florida's going to set the standard again. We need to look at best practices. I'll give you the last word here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reality is nobody should ever lose their home to taxes. That goes against the very foundation of this country.
Agreed. It does go against the very when you work your life and you pay your mortgage and your mortgage is paid off and you have to pay rent to the government basically to live on the property you paid for. To live after you paid income tax on the money you used and after sales tax and all these death taxes and every other tax they can imagine, leave the property alone. People have a right to, at least their homes, their primary home, at least have a plan for no tax on your primary home. How about that, at least? Anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, those are the things we need to be reviewing. This is a very complex issue, the way, over a long period of time. Yeah. Again, you know how it is. The government's a hungry beast. And the more you feed it, the hungrier
the
it
one
gets.
In Michigan's a lot hungrier. The one here in Michigan's a lot hungrier. Mike, I got to leave it there. Greatly appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Steve.
We'll talk again. Thank you, sir.
Sounds good. I look forward to it.
There you have it. When we come back, the strange story of Marjorie Taylor Greene and all the things going on there. We're going to talk about that. Straight ahead here on the Steve Gruber Show. Nice to have you along on a Monday. I'll be right back. All right, the strange tale of Marjorie Taylor Greene and her fallout with President Trump. They are definitely in a feud. The president taking out the gloves with her. She's been making comments about the Epstein files and so forth. He doesn't seem to be too impressed with that. But she went on CNN Sunday and said she hoped the president and her could make up. And then she apologized for all the toxic political conversations that are happening, some of which she says she's been involved with. I want you to hear this. It's bite number 4. This is from Marjorie Taylor Greene. Yesterday, I played it earlier, but if you didn't hear it, I want you to hear it now. Here it is.
You posted on X that President Trump is, with his comments, fueling a, quote, hotbed of threats against you. Obviously, any threats to your safety are completely unacceptable. But we have seen these kinds of attacks or criticism from the president at other people. It's not new. And with respect, I haven't heard you speak out about it until it was directed at you.
Dana, I think that's fair criticism. And I would like to say humbly, I'm sorry for taking part in the toxic politics. It's very bad for our country. And it's been something I've thought about a lot, especially since Charlie Kirk was assassinated, is that I'm only responsible for myself and my own words and actions. And I am committed, and I've been working on this a lot lately, to put down the knives in politics. I really just want to see people be kind to one another, and we need to figure out a new path forward that is focused on the American people, because as Americans, no matter what side of the aisle we're on, we have far more in common than we have differences. Yeah. And we need to be able to respect each other with our disagreements.
So just
MTG went on to, and listen, Marjorie Taylor Greene has been one of the most outspoken supporters of this president, and been very open and vocal on the floor of the House. But there is toxicity in the conversation today from all sides, some more than others. So maybe it is time for reconciliation. Talk about the achievements of this administration thus far. Time to work together to make sure that we do put America first. That's where we need to be. We need to put America first. You don't do that by having feuds and squabbles out in public. You know, like they said in The Godfather, you never talk about the family outside the family. Look, Democrats don't have this issue. They don't. They don't have this issue. They all work together. And whatever their differences may be, they put them aside for their greater push towards more control and more power. Democrats are very good at it. Republicans tend to splinter, whether it's Rand Paul or Thomas Massie or Marjorie Taylor Greene. They splinter and tend to do it in public. Now, John Fetterman did it with the Democrats. I'll give you that during the shutdown. He was a vocal opponent of the shutdown the entire time. A vocal opponent of the shutdown the entire time. So there are some examples. But for the most part, you go to the House, you go to these far left members of the Democrat Party. Now, they are far left. These are not people that John F. Kennedy would even recognize. He wouldn't. He's like, what is this? John F. Kennedy fought against communism his entire adult life, from fighting the fascists of World War II to fighting the Cubans on the Cuban Missile Crisis, to his early involvement in Vietnam to stop what they termed the domino effect. Anyhow, it's time for America First. Focus on the midterms, not distractions. That's my advice to the Republican Party today. Focus on the midterms. Focus on the word that is going to be the word from now until November of 2026. That's affordability. Because if you don't show these young people a path forward to being able to buy a house, to pay their bills, to get ahead, to move out of mom's basement, whatever it may be. If you can't show young people a path forward in that regard, Republicans are going to get shellacked in the midterms and shellacked in 28. And all of it will have been for naught. The greatest comeback politically in American history, the comeback of Donald Trump in politics, will have been for naught. Part of it from his own doing, potentially. Because he gets, caught up in this distraction cycle of social media too. Forget about that stuff. Focus on how you can make a house affordable and groceries affordable and rent affordable and make it so people can go get a higher education now without, bankrupting their future with $100,000 of college debt. There's got to be a better path forward. That's what young people are focused on. And I will tell you right now, it's going to be Gen Z that determines where this country goes next. Those born in the 90s and early 2000s, they will be the ones that determine where this country goes next. A path towards socialism that always fails, or a reemergence of freedom and economic possibilities in the free market system. Look, insurance can be fixed. I like Donald Trump's idea of health savings accounts. Insurance can be fixed, dropping those prices, giving people better care. And if young people were seeing that they got, whatever it is, $5,000 into their account every year to use for doctor's appointments as insurance premiums, whatever. I'm just using that number as an example. And then they didn't use it. And it rolled over. Now they got 10. It didn't really, now they got 15, 20, 25. Now they got to use some of it because they had an emergency. So they bought insurance. So their insurance premiums were whatever they were. We have to give people a chance, not just turn a cold shoulder and say, well, work harder. No, we have to give people a chance or they're going to take a chance on socialism. That's the fear, my friends, that they'll take a chance on socialism. Now, some final thoughts on this day coming up. This is the Steve Gruber Show, following on all the social media platforms. Slap that like button. And if you want to send me an email, I'll read it. SteveGruber.com. Send it along. Thank you. All right, let me give you some things here that I think should outline, people are always trying to tell us, you're MAGA, so this is what it means. You don't get to define me, right? You're MAGA. I'm not really MAGA, by the way. I am America first. Never been a member of any political party, now or ever. I do believe America should never depend on another country for energy or protection or basic supply and demand issues. I believe America should put itself first because we can't pour from an empty cup. We can't save the whole world without putting ourselves first. I think we full learn from Iraq and elsewhere, we can't be in these endless foreign wars and entanglements. I don't believe that foreign aid should be pouring out of this country until we take care of every veteran that needs help today. I think veterans should be a priority, absolutely. I do believe that immigrants make America stronger, but only the ones that come here that want to be part of America, and only the ones that come here legally. That doesn't mean they have to be citizens, but they have to be here legally. I think you can marry who you want. I don't have to agree with your choices, but marry who you want. That's not my choice to make, and that's above my pay grade. You can talk that over with God, but you marry who you want, you be who you want. I'm fine with that. I believe men are men and women are women. I don't think that's really up for debate. You can marry who you want, but you can't change science. I do believe America's in a mental health crisis. I do. I mean, look around. There's just a lot of nutty people. And I don't think guns are the problem. I think that bad policies are the problem and bad mental health is the problem. I think the Constitution is the greatest governing document ever written. Not the greatest document, the greatest governing document ever written is the Constitution of these United States. I believe in faith, family freedom, and personal responsibility. Guns come with a tremendous amount of responsibility. They do, as an example. I'll leave it there for today. Send me an email, stevegruber.com. How do you feel about all this? How do you feel about all this? All right. Fight the good fight, keep the faith. God bless America. I'm Steve Gruber. This is The Steve Gruber Show. And remember, work harder, be better.